got a 4-gamer on DraftKings, a 3-gamer on FanDuel. And we're doing a shorter show today, Adam, but Live Before Lock will be from 5 to 6, which is where DraftKings locks at 6:10 Eastern time. But we're here to get it set up. You ready to go?
Yep.
All right, we're just going to jump right into it here. Cleveland and Toronto. This is the 6:10 game. It's not on the slate for FanDuel. It is on the slate for DraftKings. So just so we're clear, DraftKings locks at 6:10. FanDuel locks at 7:05. All right. The big thing about this is that you have Trevor Bauer, who I think Trevor Bauer wins the Cy Young Award this year in the AL. I mentioned it before.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mentioned it before the season. I'm going to stick with it. If he goes through some cold spell, fine. But I do believe he's that good. And ever since he stopped throwing 700 pitches and a pitch that he created, it's true, look it up, he has been a whole lot better. Toronto has the lowest implied total on the slate at 2.8. The next closest is 3.8, and that would be the Cleveland Indians against Aaron Sanchez. Look, this Indians team, Adam, is not very good with Lindor out. They lost Encarnacion. Jason Kipnis is out. No more Brantley. So you got like Carlos Santana back, but he's coming off a rough year. Hanley Ramirez isn't in the lineup. I mean, this is Greg Allen, Roberto Perez, Tyler Naquin, Eric Stamets at the bottom of the lineup. Brad Miller batting 5th. I mean, this is not a great lineup, but we'll talk pitching first, starting with Trevor Bauer.
Yeah, I mean, Bauer obviously makes the DraftKings slate more appealing than the FanDuel slate just because he's on it. I'm with you as far as Cy Young goes. He created another pitch this offseason. Now he has a changeup that appears to be really good, which was like the one pitch he was missing. He just continues to be more advanced than basically every pitcher as far as improving and using analytics to get better. So really excited to see what he does this year. And this is a Toronto team. Justin Smoak was just scratched from the lineup too, so they just got even worse. It has nothing to do even with the fact that Toronto has just been absolutely awful hitting to start out the season. Bauer's just that good. There's no real argument against him outside of the fact that in tournaments, it's always viable to stack against the highest owned pitcher, especially on these shorter slates where he should come in at, 50+% owned. But if I have to take the choice between having, any Blue Jays or having 100% Bauer, I would choose being on the 100% Bauer side if those are my, two options. Very clearly far and away the best pitcher here. On the other side, obviously Cleveland's lineup is watered down, like you said. No Francisco Lindor makes it worse, but still a lot of lefties in this lineup, which concerns me a little bit for Sanchez. He has good stuff, but he's never really put it together the way that that he should be able to with how good it is. He really struggled with lefties last year, walked a higher percentage of lefties than he struck out, allowed a 380 WOBA to them. There are a couple of good lefties, or at least, lefties with upside in this lineup. Ramirez obviously very good. Jake Bauers has some pop. Carlos Santana is, an above average hitter. So I don't think it's the best spot for Sanchez, but beyond Bauer, there's really not a clear-cut SP2 option. So I don't have a problem with Sanchez. There are just a couple of guys that I think I prefer.
Yeah, Sanchez is one of those better real-life pitchers than fantasy pitchers. His first start was really impressive, though. 5 scoreless, although it did come against a pretty brutal Detroit lineup here. Last year, he was dealing with a lot of injuries. He's dealt with injuries, more than one time in the past. He did in that last start, his first start of the season, had an 11.1% swinging strike rate, 51% swing rate. Pretty encouraging, some of these plate discipline numbers. We'll see if they continue because I don't know if they will. But what about hitters against Aaron Sanchez?
Yeah, I think that the really 3 guys that I would be most interested in going to are 2 through 4 with Ramirez, Bauers, and Santana. The nice thing is, obviously this game's only on DraftKings, and you do have first base outfield eligibility for Bauers, so you can get him with Santana. Ramirez is my top third baseman ahead of Chris Bryant. So I like those guys, but again, it's just a really ugly Cleveland lineup for the most part.
All right. And I'm assuming Toronto's not a team you're looking to target hitter-wise.
No, I mean, unless I end up getting there just because of Bauer's projected ownership, but it's clearly not a good spot.
Well, with the way things have been going to start the season, it might be smart to just stack Toronto in every lineup. Not because Toronto's been playing well, but because You just look at, God, it's been pretty wild. Aaron Nola got hammered. Who was it yesterday? Kluber got destroyed. What's Paxton doing? I know he coughed up 3 runs in the first inning to Baltimore.
I think he's calmed down since then.
Okay, good. That was rough, man. A leadoff homer to VR. He allowed another one, so he's allowed 4 runs. He has 7 strikeouts, 83 pitches, trying to get through the 5th inning here. Chris Sale had 1 strikeout the other day. God, what do we got? Pitch to contact, Sale back again. Did you happen to look at his velocity after that start?
I saw that he was sitting 88 during the game.
God. Whew. Well, I guess we'll talk about it when he comes back around in the rotation, but that is certainly concerning. Right?
Just a little bit.
That's crazy. Let's see here. It was 89. 89 on the day. Oh, man. And he's good enough to not allow runs, but that is crazy. All right, let's talk Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. We've got Jordan Lyles. Jordan Lyles on the bump for Pittsburgh. Facing him is Tyler Mahle. Well, this should be a fun one. You have a 4.1 implied total for Pittsburgh, 4 for Cincinnati. Our projections right now have Jordan Lyles as the highest projected, not owned, but fantasy point pitcher on FanDuel. And that is because you don't have Trevor Bauer on that slate. What do you make of Jordan Lyles here at PNC Park going up against the Cincinnati Reds?
My only concern with him is I'm not sure how deep he'll go into the game. He's, for a lot of his career, he's been a reliever. I think he started like 8 or 9 games last season. It's not a great matchup against Cincinnati, but he's no worse than guys like Mahle or Sanchez or Max Fried against the Cubs. So yeah, my only real concern there is just I don't know that he gets more than 5-6 innings, but as long as he's efficient and can pick up some strikeouts, he should be fine. It's a good park, so I don't feel strongly about him. I don't dislike him. I don't like him. He's a guy that on FanDuel I would have some of because there are no other options.
All right. Yeah, I remember he came up with the Astros and was pretty disappointing. He's never been a high K guy whatsoever. And I think that's one of the things here is can he get the K rate up as a starter? When you're a reliever, it's a little bit different. It's easier to get Ks. You don't have to rely on more than 2 pitches. And now that he's going to make a start here, I don't know how many pitches he's going to throw either. I really don't. But both teams have pretty low totals. Mahle on the other side, you said Lyles is no less risky than him. I don't think he's any more risky than him. But, I mean, this is someone in Tyler Mahle who last year, my God, I'm sure you remember, obviously when you're pitching at Great American Ballpark, things can go terribly wrong. And at times things did go terribly wrong for him. He allowed a 415 WOBA to lefties, an ISO close to 300, and 2.5 home runs per 9. Those are some pretty wild numbers there, although he did strike him out at 23%.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things working in his favor here. I don't like his I wish he was cheaper, but outside of that, he obviously was better on the road last year in terms of WOBA and in terms of home runs allowed, which you would expect for most pitchers, in Great American. His strikeouts numbers plummeted on the road. I doubt that they continue, at least to the extent that we saw them at. He struck out 28% at home and like 15.5% on the road. So even if he's pitching differently at home, looking to avoid contact, I wouldn't expect the splits to be that drastic. But he was also much better against righties than lefties. Held righties to a 297 WOBA last season, or expected WOBA last season. Power numbers were much better. And while there are 4 lefties in the lineup for Pittsburgh, there are a couple things that I like. For one, it is a big park upgrade for Tyler Mahle. And for 2, Corey Dickerson's not in the lineup. So when you look at the 4 lefties here, there's not a lot of power in these guys. JB Shuck doesn't have power. Melky Cabrera doesn't hit for power. Josh Bell's, an average power guy. Adam Frazier's nothing special in the power department. So I don't think it's that risky of a matchup for him. I don't know that there's a lot of strikeout upside because these guys don't strike out a lot. And normally he's not really a high strikeout pitcher. But I just feel a little bit better about him than I do about other SP2s on the slate just because of the lineup that Pittsburgh's running out.
All right, well then let's talk about the bats here. For Pittsburgh, you just mentioned that they have 4 lefties. None of them really all that imposing. Shuck and Cabrera down there towards the bottom. Bell batting fourth, leading off Adam Frazier. Marte, Cervelli, Jung Ho Kong, and Newman batting eighth. Cincinnati, you've got Winker, Votto, Puig, Suarez, Schebler, Peraza, Barnhart, Iglesias, and Tyler Mahle. So pretty the lineup pretty much that you would expect, save for maybe one bat there for Cincinnati. Look, both of these guys are very capable of putting up decent numbers today. I think both of them are capable of giving up a decent amount of runs as well. And we are working with an abbreviated slate. So is this one of the games that you're targeting from a hitter standpoint?
This is the game that I would say I'm least interested in from a hitter standpoint, or at least on par with that Cleveland-Toronto game. I think that from the Pittsburgh side, you get a couple of guys that are interesting just because of the positions that they play. Adam Frazier leading off at second base and Francisco Cervelli batting third behind the plate. They're just weak positions. But outside of that, I don't really like the Pittsburgh guys compared to, other plays on the slate. And then from Cincinnati, kind of the same thing. They're priced up a little bit. I'd rather get to Freddie Freeman than Joey Votto at first base. Suarez is 4,700. I'd rather get to Ramirez or Bryant if I'm paying up at third. Puig at 5K is pretty unappealing. So this game isn't really that appealing. I'd much rather just be loading up on bats from these last two games.
Okay, fair enough. I see it as what I wouldn't be surprised to see Mahle come out here and struggle a little bit. I probably have a bit more interest in Pittsburgh than you do. But as far as ownership goes, I don't really know. Okay, let me do something real quick here. Just pulling up on DraftKings some ownership. I want to see where we're coming in with a lot of these guys because obviously, okay, so Frazier is right now projected tied for the highest ownership on DraftKings. I don't think that's a huge surprise. Lefty-righty matchup against Mahle leading off. And then outside of that, you have Jung Ho Kong down there, maybe 8th or 9th. Cervelli, but really nothing from Cincinnati at the top whatsoever here against Jordan Lyles. You get down to like Peraza and Winker at 15, 16%, but that's it.
Yeah, I mean, that it makes them appealing just because from an ownership standpoint, like whenever you can get a high upside offense on a 4-game slate at low ownership, it's appealing. But I think that they pretty clearly are like the most suboptimally priced team on the slate.
Yep, I don't disagree with that at all. All right, we've got 2 more to go here. Let's talk about Atlanta and Chicago. The Atlanta Braves have the highest expected run total on this slate, and that comes against Yu Darvish, Adam. And then Max Fried on the other side with 4.4 expected total against him. Darvish in his first start went 2 2/3 innings, allowed 3 runs, 1 homer, struck out 4, and walked. You ready for this? 7. He walked 7 batters. Pretty brutal. 38 pitches he threw for strikes out of 75. I mean, it was pretty rough. You would hope that he can rebound, but a matchup with this Atlanta team is a tough one to rebound with because you don't miss a lot of bats. They will take walks. And as we see, they actually have the highest implied total on this short slate.
Yeah, Darvish, it's still obviously really difficult to know what we have in Darvish. That was his first start after throwing 40 innings last season and then going down with an injury. He was pretty awful, walked 7 2 2/3 and doesn't get an easy matchup here against Atlanta. I think that, so like, even if you assume that if you are willing to say that he's just as good as he was 2 years ago when he had his last full season, which I'm not, but even then he struggled with home runs. And that was the case for his last 2 full seasons, allowed at least 1.3 home runs per 9 in each of those seasons. And now he's facing an Atlanta team that's difficult to strike out and does have some pop in a park that plays reasonably well for left-handed power. So I don't think it's a really good spot for Darvish, even if he is close to what he was 2 years ago. And if he's worse, then obviously it's even better for Atlanta. I think Freddie Freeman is a top first base option. I think Inciarte leading off at 3,800 on DraftKings is a really nice price point there. Ozzie Albies is better from the right side of the plate than the left side, but second base isn't a deep position, so I don't mind him. And then, obviously, going over to the righties with Donaldson and especially with Acuna, they don't have the platoon advantage, but still high upside hitters there. You have Brian McCann as a cheap catching option, not the power that he used to have, but the options are basically him, Cervelli, and Contreras on the slate. So I like the price tag that he offers.
All right. Yeah. Do you like any? I'm assuming pitching isn't something you're targeting from this game.
I was trying to get the ownership pulled out. There it is.
I can give it to you
Where's
right
Max?
now.
Where's Max Fried at?
All right. Well, first of all, Darvish is 30% on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Darvish, last I looked, was 37. That is the highest projected owned pitcher and any player on this slate. Max Fried is on DraftKings or on FanDuel at 14%, which is below Darvish, which is below Harvey. Looks like number 3 here. And then on DraftKings, he is 20%. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fourth highest projected pitcher behind Bauer, Harvey, and Darvish.
Yeah, I like him in tournaments as long as his projected ownership doesn't increase. I think that he has the best stuff out of this whole group of Harvey, Darvish, Molly, Lyles. His issue is that he struggles with control. He gets behind in counts. He walks guys, and things can fall apart pretty quickly for him. And it's obviously a difficult matchup against Chicago. But I don't think there are any really like cakewalk matchups for the SP2s here. And I just think he has the most strikeout upside. He's thrown about 60 big league innings, mostly out of the bullpen, but he struck out about 24% of hitters. He struck out 24% in AAA last season in 13 starts. He's a former first-round pick. Really, really, really good curveball, good enough fastball and changeup. Just good stuff. I think that he, on a talent basis, has the best chance of success here. And with him coming in behind some of these other SP2s in ownership, I don't mind taking my chances there.
He also had a 13.9% swinging strike rate last year, 12.8% the year before that. He definitely has good stuff. It's a matter of whether he can work relatively deep into this game. If so, I think Fried becomes a really solid option. And as we just pointed out, ownership here is going to be really low. I mean, he's going to be above low comparative to the slate. Like he's going to be coming in above guys like Edison Volquez and stuff, but definitely not very popular at all. And you're not going to be paying a lot for him either. We talked a little bit about hitting already, but let's just cover this again. Atlanta and Chicago. Where are your favorite bats from both sides?
Freeman and McCann because of his position from Atlanta. And then on the other side, Javi Baez, again, because of his position. I don't even mind playing him in the same lineups as Fried, just because shortstop's really bad on the slate. And with 3 or 4 games, it makes you contrarian, and it's really not that suboptimal when you have this, limited games. Chris Bryant would be my second favorite, or I guess Contreras because of position from Chicago, and then Chris Bryant. But I would put Bryant on DraftKings behind Ramirez at third base.
All right. I guess we close it out with the last game here, LA Angels and Texas. And we'll turn it over to our boys live before lock. You got Josh and Chris coming up next, and then Eddie has a live before lock for NBA. Do we have another? I believe we have an 8 p.m. start time again for basketball. It would make sense. It is a Thursday, but let me just check so everyone knows, and it'll make things a whole lot easier if we can run that through back to back to back. 8 p.m. start time. Yep. A 3-game NBA slate. All right. Let's finish it out, man. We've got Edinson Volquez, 4.6 total for the Angels. That is the second highest behind only the Braves. And then get this, 3.9 implied total for the Rangers against Matt Harvey. Look, Harvey made improvements last year when he got traded to Cincinnati, but I am still not a believer that Harvey has fixed his issues against lefties, especially given that he's never going to get the same velocity back that we'd seen in the past. Against righties, even when Harvey was struggling, I wasn't huge on same-handed bats against them. He was still decent at preventing a lot of power. But lefties have really given him a whole lot of trouble. And his velocity is the same as it was last year for the most part. But let's get it started. We'll start on pitching here, and then we'll get to our bats and turn it over to Live Before Lock.
Yeah, so I mean, we have Harvey projected as the second highest owned pitcher on DraftKings. It's not that I have any problem with that. I don't think he's any worse than Fried or Molly or Lyles or Sanchez. But I really don't want to roster the highest. I don't want to be matching the field on a spot where I don't feel strongly about any of these five guys. I would much rather just be like flipping ownership and hoping that, variance falls in my favor. So that combined with the fact that the amount of lefties that should be in this Texas lineup does scare me. I don't see the need to get to a really popular Matt Harvey with all that much frequency here. I'd rather be loading up on these Texas bats. They're my favorite tournament stack, especially when you factor in how highly projected we have Harvey's ownership to be. Looking at last season and even the season before that, obviously he did, like you said, he made some improvements, but it really didn't carry over to his numbers against lefties. He struck out 20% of lefties last year, 13.5% the year before that, allowed 1.9 home runs per nine last season, 2.7 in 2017. He has not been good against them. And it's not like these are mediocre, lefties. These are well above average hitters. Guys like Chu and Gallo. Cabrera is a good enough hitter. Mazzara, if he's in the lineup, is a good hitter. Odor should be a good hitter. He was average last year. He was terrible 2 years ago, but he still projects as being above average. And they all have power. Their biggest issues are that they strike out a lot, but Harvey doesn't have good strikeout numbers against lefties. If you're going to let guys like Joey Gallo put the ball in play, and Shin-Soo Choo and Mazzara, and even Ronald Guzman has power with his massive strikeout percentage, things can get really bad for you in a hurry. So I love getting to Texas here. I don't care what their implied run total is. Yeah, the ballpark's not great, but again, this time of year, most ballparks aren't great. So I really like getting to Texas and leveraging against Matt Harvey here. Like when you have Trevor Bauer projected for 55% ownership, or you have Matt Harvey projected at 40%, I would just so much rather be loading up on Trevor Bauer and just getting as many bats in against Harvey and trying to leverage that way than I would having to fade Bauer just to play like Blue Jays bats. To me, picking on Harvey's the spot to go to here.
This was my favorite stack too, before even looking at ownership. And then after seeing it, just made it more appealing. Not only that, but outside of Joey Gallo, these Ranger bats are not going to cost you all that much.
Yeah, and you also, and I don't mind paying up for Gallo. Like, he's one of my favorite plays on the entire slate, regardless. But also, in the middle of all those lefties, you have, Elvis Andrus as a cheap shortstop option where, again, Javi Baez is like the only shortstop on the slate. I mean, I guess Simmons, but it's not like he offers you upside. So I think that it's a pretty easy stack in terms of, pairing it with Bauer, and it gives you a ton of upside.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to know, I wish that Mazzara was going to play tonight, but outside,
is he not?
He's not expected to now.
Do you know why?
Let me take a look.
I know he had like a collision with Gurriel last night.
Bruised left quad during that collision. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because he kept playing. He homered later.
It came out in the 8th.
Okay.
So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, even without Mazzara, you still have. I would say you still should have 4 lefties in the lineup. I would think. Yeah, I would think you're gonna have 4 here.
At least 5.
Who's your Odor, Cabrera, Gallo, Chu,
Guzman?
Yeah, okay. I don't see any more than that though. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know who they don't have Drew Robinson anymore, so I don't know who they're.
I would think it's probably Hunter Pence that gets the start. Yeah, that should be fun.
But, yeah, probably.
What about Angels bats here against Volquez?
So, I mean, Trout, obviously, if you can get to him, go for it. That goes without saying. Justin Bour would be my favorite non-Trout hitter here. One of my favorite first base options. Tons of power. Volquez has never been a high strikeout guy, and his last start was his first since 2017. He had a 6% swinging strike rate. It doesn't look like anything really changed there as far as strikeouts go. So I like Bour's power upside. Beyond that, though, it's not a lot of one-offs that I like. It's more of, just full stacks because Calhoun has a little bit of power, but there's a lot better outfield plays individually. Same with Simmons, who has virtually no power. It's just not a high upside lineup individually outside of Bohr and Trout. It's more of a lineup that's just going to, single and double you to death and hopefully throw some runs on the board.
Yeah, for sure.
Better FanDuel stack than DraftKings stack for that reason.
Right. Before we head out, we got a minute to go here. Let's give our top stacks. Obviously, we both like Texas. There's only eight teams, and only 6 on FanDuel, but we will do this anyway. Outside of Texas, what is it for you?
Atlanta, and then Chicago on DraftKings, and the Angels on FanDuel.
All right. Yeah, Atlanta. Well, Texas, Atlanta. Yeah, I guess Chicago, although Max Fried is really interesting to me. So obviously you can, some with, some without, of course. And then that's probably it.
I mean, I keep kind of going back, like the more I think about it, going back to Cincinnati once you pointed out how low owned they are and how they are just clearly overpriced. Anytime, again, you can get like a low owned stack that is not in a terrible spot and actually has good hitters, it's appealing on a slate like this. But again, they are clearly overpriced, and it's going to be tough to get the guys that you want and to get Bauer.
Agreed. Not to mention that if Harvey's ownership is going to be that high, then you'll still have a decent amount of leverage with Texas.
Yep.
All right, that'll do it for us. A shorter show today, only 4 games, but we'll be back with you tomorrow with your regularly scheduled full-length deeper dive. Adam Scher and myself. Until then, stick around. Josh and Chris coming up on the deeper dive, out live before lock, and then NBA live before lock with Fast Eddie Fia from 7 to 8 p.m. Take you up to lock for NBA as well. Before you head out, hit that thumbs up. Like the video if you appreciate this content, you want to see more, because it really does help us, and we greatly appreciate it. Also, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you always know when we're going to be dropping new content. Good luck tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow on a longer, better, because they're always better than the one before, deeper dive. That's not true.